Hi, welcome to the Sales Strategies for Christian Coaches podcast. I'm Justin Janowski, your host. And if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that this podcast is for Christian coaches and Christian entrepreneurs. I started my Christian coaching business in December of 2018, just hoping to make it. I felt nervous and scared, and God provided beyond what I could have imagined. I collected over $250,000 my first year in business and over $2 million my first 6 years in business. And along the way, I've been teaching Christian coaches how to elevate their sales process and do it in a high integrity way, how to identify and attract their ideal clients, and how to have the right mindset around sales and money, and to craft offers that are going to be really ideal for them and their clients. And so we're really excited to have you listening into the show. Today is a special episode because I've got a guest. And if you've listened to our podcast a lot before, you know it's usually just me talking. And so one of my first guests on the podcast is someone who I'm thrilled to be talking to. It's Laura Naiser. And Laura has been my friend and client for years. We've been working together for 4 years now. And I met Laura at another conference, immediately just loved her. And we connected over several calls. She ultimately ended up becoming a client at Faith to Influence. And she's someone who in her story, had some old fears around sales. And I remember when we started working together, Laura implements at a really high level. She closed 2 $7,500 deals the next week after we started working together, which was super inspiring to me. And she is one of the best mindset coaches I know. She's a great mindset coach specifically for Christian business leaders. I know she works with a lot of Christian women. She works with some people not in the faith-based space, but she's also my wife's mindset coach. Kara has been working with Laura for probably a year now and just loves receiving mindset coaching from Laura. She's one of the best of the best. She's going to be speaking at our summer conference. We want you to join us at our summer conference. Go to www.f2itribe.com/CCA live. We'll put it in the show notes as well. We'd love for you to come and join us at the conference. We're going to get an hour-long keynote from Laura. Okay, there's my big introduction. Laura, hi. Thanks for being here with us.
Hi, I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, tell us more about what you do.
So I help established small business owners, usually coaches, consultants, service providers, overcome their self-sabotage patterns and their it's imposter syndrome, but where they feel like they're just not good enough or they're going to be found out. I help them get over all of that using my proprietary empowered transformation accelerator method. It allows us to make changes faster, help them really quickly feel better so that they can unlock their full growth potential and really have a thriving business without sacrificing their relationships or their well-being or their values.
Cool. Tell us more about imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so imposter syndrome, it's a psychological phenomenon where you are fully qualified. You have all of the credentials and the experience, and you have all of the results to back up that you can do what you say you're going to do. But you have this internal fear that you're not good enough, that people are going to realize you're not as good as they think that they think you are, or that you're going to you are in a constant trying to best yourself just to prove yourself. So you're constantly showing up with this fear and anxiety and this sense of, I have to prove myself every time I'm out in the world. And it's exhausting. And when you don't know how to redirect that and handle that stuff properly, it can lead to a lot of overwhelm and procrastination in our business and just kind of hiding and playing smaller than what we're really capable of.
That's so interesting. And it's relatable for me. I think that oftentimes new coaches probably imagine this only happens to the new coach who maybe isn't really good enough, but it happens to almost all of us. And I remember being a new coach. I was tossing and turning at night. I was totally scared. I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I wasn't sure if I was good enough. I wasn't sure if I could do this. I kept pushing forward anyways. And ultimately, as I had enough trust and confidence in God to take action in spite of the fear, it led to results. But even now, I still have this occasionally. It doesn't happen to me nearly as often, but today I have a meeting today with Drew Shaw and his team at Leaders on Fire. They're one of my private coaching clients. I've been working with them for several weeks now. They were in, Drew ran over $100 million business. Super successful business, was one of the leaders there, went on some incredible mission trips. He's a really impressive guy, but humble and awesome. And he found our podcast and he listened to the podcast and reached out, and they hired me for $10,000 to do some private coaching for the team. And we went through our several calls. We did it on Zoom and virtual instead of in person in this case. And I provided a ton of value, and they loved the work that we did so much so that they decided to hire me for another 6-month engagement. And we have our first weekly sales meeting. I'm going to be kind of the virtual sales manager for their team for the next 6 months. Our first sales meeting's today, and I woke up and I talked to my wife and I said, Kara, I'm feeling nervous. I'm scared. I have that imposter syndrome, even though I've already worked with them several times. They know who I am. They like who I am. I'm doing good work. They want to hire me again. And I've already had these calls. It's not even a new client. And I still felt that today.
Yes.
How does it show up for most coaches and entrepreneurs when they feel the imposter syndrome? What's the result of it for many of us?
Yeah, I think you just did a great job of describing the experience one has with it. And you're right too. I want to address like something you said just right before that, because it's true. Like, beginners, there's a flavor of imposter syndrome that beginners have, like when you're just starting out in your business. And then you kind of get over that. And then the second round comes in, and it's when you're going to that next level. Whenever we're kind of pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone into a new leading edge of growth, that's when our brain hasn't been there before. And it feels that it kicks in that fear of the unknown, the fear of the new. And so it's the same thing. It's imposter syndrome, but it looks different. It shows up different in more established entrepreneurs than it does in the new ones. And so like with your case, it's really helpful to remind yourself, like, this is totally normal. My human brain is made to do this. Like, it's trying to protect me from going into a new situation that we don't know we can survive yet. Really, that's what our, I call it our toddler brain. It's that part of our brain where it's just running on autopilot based on our past experiences. And it's always looking to the past. And so when you put that part of your brain, that lower part of your brain, into a new situation, it freaks out, and it's totally normal. And so you are doing exactly what you're supposed to do. You're giving airtime to, wait a minute, here's what's actually true. They do like me. I have gotten good results. You remind yourself of all the reasons why you are perfectly qualified to be in that room and coaching them. And it's funny, it will show up usually in the form of your brain offering you a question that sounds so benign, but it's like, well, who am I to be doing this? Or something like, or what if? And the minute we hear our brain start a sentence with what if, and then fill in the blank with some catastrophic, worst case scenario, that's how our brains are wired to work, to keep us safe. And then as soon as we hear that, we need to train ourselves to go, I've got to answer that question. So who am I to be doing this? You just did a great job of modeling exactly what to do. Here's who I am. I'm somebody they've hired before. They liked the results I got. They brought me back because they like me, and I got them good results, and they want to repeat that process. And that's why I'm here. That's who I am to be doing this. And as soon as you answer the question, your brain can kind of calm down. And that way you don't have to rely on just forcing yourself to show up and kind of grit your teeth and get through it. That's exhausting. So we want to cultivate it doesn't always have to be like, I'm totally confident now. It can just be like, I see all the evidence that makes it reasonable for me to be in this situation and know that I can handle it.
Yes. Okay. That's so helpful. Answer the question. We all
Answer the
have those like
question.
questions that pop. What if I'm not
Yes.
good enough, or who am I to do this? And what if they see the real me?
Yes.
And oftentimes we answer the question, we find that the answer wasn't nearly as scary as the question sounded.
Exactly.
And even if the answer is not like giving us a perfect degree of confidence, we just need that mustard seed of faith, right?
Yes.
Just enough to
Yeah.
take the
Then we
next
can
step and
lean
keep going.
into faith and courage. And
Yeah.
courage, like confidence is a lagging emotion. We have to find the evidence and then that it's okay. And then we'll feel confident. But we can cultivate courage. It's much more accessible to us. And leaning into, God's got me in this, or, no matter what happens, God's going to work this for my good.
Mm,
And something like that allows us to kind of settle down. And then when we start reminding ourselves of our past results that
mhm.
warrant us being in a situation like that, then that helps us find the courage. And you might even like remind yourself of other times where you felt a little nervous about something and then you went in and, oh yeah, I went in and it was totally fine. And this good result came out of it. And that will spark courage for you to be like, okay, I can do this. I can get in
Great.
there
I
and try it.
love it. God's got me. And
Yeah.
that honestly, like that is what helped me get through the early stage of my business where I was having a lot of that anxiety, a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of uncertainty those first few months. I got through it by surrendering to God over and over and saying, God's got me, and cultivating that
Yes.
faith and courage, which is a good reminder. When you're giving your keynote at the conference, thank you for sponsoring. I'm so
Yes.
excited for
I'm
this.
super excited.
You've got a full hour. Are you going to teach us how to cultivate more of that faith and courage?
Yes. In fact,
Cool.
we're going to look at, like today, we're going to be talking a lot about specifically sales, but in the keynote, we're going to cover a lot of different ways that imposter syndrome and self-sabotage creates a premature growth ceiling for us in our
Mm,
business, and how we can unlock, give you some tips and strategies. And I'm going to go over my overall ETA methodology and show you the phases that it's normal to go through, how you get from sabotaging yourself to showing up consistently and effectively. Not
yes.
perfectly, but consistently and effectively in a way that feels totally aligned for you and that doesn't require you to constantly be like using willpower and grit and shoving your emotions down. That will lead to burnout. So we want to
Mm,
lead to thriving and
great.
feeling really good as we grow our business. So
So
that's what we're going
good.
to talk about. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. And one of the things I believe is that awareness is the first step to transformation. And
Yes.
so, as our listeners are tuning into this, if you want to pause for even just a moment, say, hey, do I have some self sabotage going on? Do I have some imposter syndrome? Do I relate to these ideas? And if we just gain awareness and admit, like, okay, yes, this is something I'm struggling with, and there are solutions, there are answers, then that's the first step to beginning to find those answers and then, of course, transform it. I want to pivot now. I know you probably have like tons of great responses to that. We'll get more at the conference. Come and join us, f2itribe.com/CCA live. It's F the number 2, the letter I, tribe.com/CCA live. We'd love for you to join us. I do want to ask, because this is the sales strategies for Christian coaches, coming from a great mindset coach, coming from a Christian coach who's made high ticket sales in her business, what are one or two of your favorite sales strategies that have been effective for you in growing your business?
Yeah, for me, you've been super helpful for me in really helping me learn to actually love sales. And I hated sales when we first started hanging out together and I started following you and I came to that challenge like, I was just like, I'd rather do anything than a sales call. And now I love it. I absolutely love it. And so um, I think for me, really being present with the person I'm having the conversation with, and dropping worrying about me and really focusing on the person and being present with them. That has been a game changer for me. It gets the focus off of me, and it's having, you always teach us, it's having a conversation. It's just like a coaching conversation. And so curiosity is the best emotion for me when I get on a sales call. Being in a curious state, what's going on for this person? Where are their struggles? What are the pieces they're missing to be able to get the result they want? And when I'm in curiosity like that, and I'm not thinking about me, but I'm being present with them, it's all in service to that person. And that just feels so good to know that whether they end up buying or not, they're going to have felt seen and heard and understood and served. And that more often than not leads to a yes. And, or at least, I want to follow up and have a follow-up conversation. And so that's for me, like those two things, curiosity and being present with that person is the big things for me.
That's so good. And it's a key to what we were talking about before with like the imposter syndrome and self-judgment. I felt the same thing. Like when I'm focused on myself, am I good enough? Do they like me? Is my resume strong enough? Am I proving myself well enough? I get into a lot of self-judgment like we all do, and it can be hard to get out of my own way. But if I start to focus and presence on the other person, like you're talking about, and make it about them, less of me, more of them,
Yes.
And less of me, more of God. Like, let's allow the Holy Spirit to work. Let's be about the other person. When we put the presence on them instead of us, we can focus on serving. Even simple things like, are you looking at yourself when you're having the sales conversation? Or are you looking at them? How present are you to them versus your own appearance on the Zoom screen and things like that? Oh man, that's so good. And then the second thing I heard from you was curiosity. Showing up in a very curious state of mind, ask the next question, and just wanting to know this person, understand this person. And those two really play together so well. That's amazing. Laura shared that when we met, she did not like sales. She said she hated sales. What's amazing, Laura she's been through our Sales School for Coaches program. She's been through our Coaches Mastermind for multiple years. She's been part of all the programs and all the things that we've done really for coaches at Faith to Influence. And now Laura loves sales and has become so good at it that she's one of my consistent hires. She's on like our partnership sales team. Many of our listeners know this already. Some maybe don't. We get hired by 7- and 8-figure coaches to do sales at their events for them. Laura's done sales at a ton of those big events for us. She's a great success story of like the transformation of how somebody feels about sales. And she went from hating it to loving it. And now sales is so much easier, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's so funny. Recently I did some sales calls, where I was helping out a friend who was having a launch, and I did her sales calls for her. And my husband was out of town, and I talked to him that night after we wrapped up the launch, and I was so excited. And I was like, this was so fun. He was like, I bet you never thought you'd say that. I was like, I know. I just did like a week of just like sales call after sales call. And it was just so fun. And I just think that getting your reps in is essential, because every time you do it, you can create evidence that you're getting better at it, and you can focus on progress, not perfection. And that really helped me too, like having the opportunities to just practice and get in there and do it over and over. It just starts to feel more natural, and you can start to have fun with it. And you let go, when you let go of all the fears and needing to be perfect, and you're just there curious with that person, serving them, it changes everything.
Yeah. You make it sound easy and fun. The journey to sales mastery is internal and external. Laura, thank you so much. If people are like curious about this self-sabotage. They're curious about imposter syndrome. They're curious about like how their mindset is affecting their results in business. And they want more from you. Of course, they can come to the summer conference, Christian Coaches Academy Live. We want them there. But how else can they find you, connect with you, or take the next step with you?
Yeah, I think the best next step is if you're kind of wondering, like, am I sabotaging myself? How might this be showing up? I have a 5-minute self-sabotage assessment you can take. You can go to lauranaiser.com/Justin, and we'll have a page specifically for your audience, Justin. And you can take that little assessment, and you're going to get the assessment. It'll tell you how to interpret your results. And I have 3 of my easiest to implement tips that are going to be really effective in getting you some quick wins to you'll get awareness of where you're sabotaging and how it's affecting your business. And then 3 tips to help you start getting out of that.
Great. The self-sabotage assessment.
Yep.
And that is at lauranaiser.com/Justin.
Justin.
I didn't know you were going to have that. I like that. That sounds really fun. I don't know if I've been in a URL. I don't put my own name in our URL. So I really like that a lot. lauranaiser.com/Justin. We'll put this in the show notes as well. Laura, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, I hope we're hanging out with you at the summer conference.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone.